Welcome back to Weems Motor Co. Stick around and watch me get the crap shocked out of me. An ignition magneto, also called a high tension magneto, which means high voltage, is an older type of ignition system used in spark ignition engines. It uses a magneto and a transformer to make pulses of high voltage for spark plugs. In the late 1890s, English engineer Frederick Richard Sims collaborated with German engineer Robert Bosch in developing the first practical high-tension magneto. In 1900, the Bosch magneto ignition was used in the Gottlieb Daimler engines on the Zeppelin, a type of rigid airship named after the German inventor Ferdinand von Zeppelin. A magneto is an electrical generator using permanent magnets and is able to produce relatively low voltage electricity. However, it is unable to produce the high voltages required by a spark plug as used in most modern engines. A magneto also includes a built-in electrical transformer which converts the electricity to a higher voltage. The first car to use magneto ignition was the 1901 German Mercedes 35 horsepower racing car. Ignition magnetos were soon used on most petrol-fired engines, including cars, motorcycles, and stationary applications. Ignition magnetos were largely replaced by ignition coils once batteries became common in cars and motorcycles, since a battery-operated coil can provide a high-voltage spark even at low speeds, making starting easier. Alright, so after that brief history of magnetos and a little bit of their explanation, what we have is a problem. We have been working on our bike called the Jury, which is the motorcycle that we are only using parts that we have on hand. We're not allowed to spend a single penny on anything ordering parts for this bike. And we are at the point where we have to get an ignition system into the engine before we move on to the gearbox. So out of all of these magnetos, we are keeping our fingers crossed that we can either find one that is producing energy or be able to steal parts and build one to be able to do that. So in that history lesson, we discovered that magnetos were used in all sorts of applications, from Zeppelins to cars. Well, we use them in tractors and motorcycles, and pretty much any combustion engine that uses gas or petrol for the fuel. Even all the way down to your modern day lawnmowers and weed eaters and things like that. So we have a magneto actually from an old tractor sitting here. Why I have it? I just think magnetos are cool. Not that I could use that in an application on what we're doing, but you can see that I have a plethora of old magnetos. Now, these first two over here are made by a company called Joe Hunt. One of these is a Morris mag, but a majority of these are what came out on your stock pre-unit Triumphs, which would be a Lucas magneto. And then down here on the end, I have a BTH magneto. It's an earlier design that actually Lucas copied and utilized on their builds. So we're gonna take one of these Lucas magnetos and just kind of inspect it, make sure that all of the parts are there so that we could figure out if it is able to produce energy. So when we are talking about producing energy, let's talk about that really quickly. So here in the United States, the typical home produces 110 volts at the outlets. That's where you plug your cell phone charger in, or where you plug in your TV or whatever you have. Now, in the UK or the United Kingdom, those homes produce 230 volts. Now, whether you have 110 volts or 230 volts, it will shock you, and it could actually kill you if you don't remove that current from your body. Well, let's just say that these magnetos make your home outlets look like they are babies. These things can produce up to 20,000 volts. Yes, you heard that correctly, 20,000 volts. And in this video, I am going to purposefully, just for you guys, shock myself with one of these magnetos. That is, if we can get one of these things to produce energy. We need it for that motorcycle. So with that said, let's go through and see if we can find one of these that actually works. All right, so these last two magnetos we have down here on the end, one being the Joe Hunt and the other one being the Morris, are great applications. These didn't come around until the 60s and 70s as an option, a performance option for your Harley Davidsons, your Hondas, your Yamahas, and your Triumph and all the British bikes. Love these things. They tend to work forever. A couple different models had different types of attaching points depending on which engine you were putting them on. One of these being a fixed mounting system with the flanges on it that you would use for a unit construction engine. And then the other one has a bolt-on style system where you could use it for many different applications, from Harleys or whatever. You just change that adapter plate. I don't have an adapter plate for a pre-unit. I could go over and machine one, but I think at the end of the day, I just want to hold on to these two until I build maybe a race engine or something cool like that. So we're going to focus mostly on these Lucas style magnetos. So before we go in and tackle figuring out which ones of these are complete with all of the parts and maybe will spark, just really quick, I want to talk about this BTH magneto. Great magneto. It's actually complete. We could probably throw it up in the vise really quick and just test it, but I don't want to use this because this would be more special for like a restoration, being something like our bike, the Rainmaker, that had originally come with a BTH magneto. So let's test this thing really quick. Just throw it up in the vise, put a drill on the end of it, and see if it's producing spark, and then we get on to those Lucas magnetos. Well, the old BTH is not throwing a spark like I would like. If you touch the wire to it, it kind of like gives a little spark, which leads to think that it's either a points adjustment or possibly a capacitor inside there. So, on to the Lucases. I am almost positive out of the 7 of these, we could probably put one together, but really quickly, I just want to talk about some of the parts that might be missing, being the pickups. Now, the pickups is what the armature rides on and sends the spark to the spark plug wire down to your spark plug. Really importantly, in there is a little spring with a piece of carbon at the end that applies pressure onto the armature as it spins around. So we need to make sure that they have pickups on them. Now, I know for sure this one is missing the pickups. They should be these little black plastic things, or possibly red, that look like this. That little armature right there at the end, that little piece, that's where your spark plug wires hook in. So if it doesn't have that on it, we need to set those to the side. Not to say that they don't work, but they're just missing pieces. That takes us from 7 down to 4. Now, these 4 are able to possibly be thrown up into the vise and tested because they have the ability to hook the spark plug wires in there. So let's go ahead and take our time and see if we can get one of these things to spark. Who knows? Maybe it will. And if it does, that's when I'm going to take the opportunity to show you guys how bad these things shock you. So let's get them up in the vise, let's test each one out, and we'll see what happens. All right, so magneto number 1, same situation as with that BTH. It could be possibly that points adjustment or a capacitor or something going wrong in there, but it does get spark when you barely scrape it across. These things should be throwing a spark when we get close to the aluminum, not when we touch the aluminum. So this one possibly could work, but we're gonna set it to the side and move on to the next one. Alright, so Magneto 2, throwing that spark, it's a little intermittent on this other side, so it's a high possibility that this one might be the one we use. I'm gonna set it in the maybe pile, and we'll keep moving on, possibly just a points clean on this thing, and we will be able to use it on that bike we call the jury. So, number 2, possible. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3, dead in the water, not getting anything, even when we touch it against the housing. No telling what's going on with this thing. It could be broken things inside. It could be missing the points, because I haven't even pulled off the end cap on any of these. But we know this one's a no-go. So let's move on to the last one, Magneto number 4. So we have Magneto 2 and Magneto 4. Now, both of these are throwing spark. It just seems that Magneto 4 is really consistent, which is kind of cool. So I'm not even worried about it. Maybe I'll go in and clean the points a little bit just to make sure before I throw it on there. Definitely want to clean up the outside of the housing and everything, but something to note, I just remembered that Magneto number 2, the one that actually works, this one came from our bike called Rusty, which was the donor for our last Born Free bike back, oh gosh, Born Free 13, a couple of years ago. So that's pretty amazing. As bad as the shape that motorcycle is in, that this Magneto that just pulled off and threw it in the bin actually fires, haven't adjusted it or cleaned anything. So that tells you the quality of the Lucas electronics. I don't know, we've heard all the jokes about Lucas, you know, the Prince of Darkness. Why do the British like to drink their beer warm? Because Lucas made the refrigerators too. All of those jokes that Lucas has, I have to say, I am quite impressed, because I'm sure both of these have been laying around, not being rotated, not being used, and I'm gonna say at least 35 years. So we're gonna use Magneto number 4, gonna clean up the outside, and then once it's clean, we're gonna bring it back over to make sure that it's still sparking after we cleaned it. And I'm gonna grab a hold of that spark plug lead and let it shock me just for you guys. I don't wanna do it. I make all my other friends when they come over do it, but I'm gonna do it just for you guys. So let's get this thing cleaned up and let me get shocked. All cleaned up, and you know, while I was cleaning it, I got really excited because I seen that gold paint on there. Now there was a uber valuable, uber rare Lucas K2FR racing Magneto that came out, and they are highly sought after, and like I said, very valuable. And I was like, oh my gosh, do I have one? And then I realized I already have one. I have one on a bike over at the storage unit, and I remember looking at that very closely and noticing that, yes, they are painted gold. However, in spite of this housing being gold, it is not a K2FR. We are missing the data plate, which would first off tell us. And then secondly, on the K2FRs, they would have serial numbers stamped into that flat pad, and this has no numbers or anything. So this is our typical Lucas K2FC, which is a competition hotter than the regular K2F Magnetos. So this one is cleaned up, good to go, and I'm getting nervous because we're gonna test it one more time, and if she's throwing spark, I'm gonna get shocked. I hope you guys are gonna like this, because I am not looking forward to it. Let's get it back in the vise. Let's test it one more time. And then let's see if we can get old Weems shocked with up to 20,000 volts of electricity. Let's do it. We have spark. We have good spark. Nice blue flame blowing out of this old Lucas Magneto. This is the moment that you've all been waiting for, and the moment that I don't want to do. So, gonna hook the drill up to it, hold onto that cable, and get the crap shocked out of me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But it's all for you guys. Holding it. If I could say some choice words, I would right now. That Magneto is hot. Oh God. Oh, I'm not doing that again. Hopefully you enjoyed watching that. If you want to see it again, just rewind it and watch it again, but no. This Magneto is ready to go for the jury. We got to get some plug wires, get it installed. Oh, let's go grab some plug wires. We are excited to give you this piece of information. On WeemsMotorCo.com now, we have custom motorcycle parts, and part of that collection is custom motorcycle spark plug wire kits. We have these all different colors, cloth braided, translucent, all kinds of stuff, and these will work with your modern motorcycles, whether it's an electronic ignition, a points ignition, or like what we have here, a Magneto ignition system. So with that, we also have some super cool custom end tips where they hook into your spark plugs, whether the old school or 90 degree. You got those options. The kits do come with the standard rubberized ones. Head over to Weems Motor Co. Check out all the other cool stuff. Grab a t-shirt while you're there. Grab stickers. Grab whatever we have in stock, because we are running low on everything. But we got spark plug wires for the Magneto so that we can get that onto the jury. And we are not going to bother you with that, because we've done this several times with putting magnetos and setting timing and things, yada, yada, yada. So that's going to wrap up today's video. It's been a blast. It's been shocking, needless to say. Thanks to you guys. I appreciate that. Not really. I'm not doing it again for you guys. But with that, if you are new around here, jump down and hit that subscribe button. If you really like the video, hit that thumbs up. Turn those notifications on and let everyone know what's going on right here at Weems Motor Co. Peace!